For our last story today, let's go back to history, to the 1970s. This was the era of bell-bottoms and disco. But for smokers, it was a confusing decade. People already knew that smoking was bad. Studies had linked cigarettes to cancer. Governments were intervening as well, with education programs, restrictions on selling to children, hiked taxes. Yet somehow, people still thought that smoking was fine. And why wouldn't they? Cigarettes were still everywhere, in magazine ads, on billboards, at sports events, in movies and TV shows, inside offices and bars. Country after country had a culture of smoking. And if everyone seemed to be doing it, could a thing really be that dangerous? That's what people thought. Now, fast forward a few decades, today a similar scenario is playing out, except this time junk food is the menace, or what scientists like to call ultra-processed food, UPF. They've given it a scary name to command the seriousness that junk food deserves. But before I get to the dark, worrying stuff, what is ultra-processed food? It includes food that has undergone multiple industrial processes. In simpler terms, food that has been beaten to a pulp and bathed in flavors, colors, and other additives. It is ready to eat and looks absolutely delicious. Your burgers, chips, chocolates, fizzy drinks. These are the obvious examples. But even baked goods, protein bars, cereals, and yogurts are part of this list. Yes, they're mouth-watering, but it's a scam, because this food is seriously unhealthy and you already know that. For years, studies have linked ultra-processed food, or UPF, to poor health. It is high in added sugar, fat and salt. It is low in vitamins and fiber. So you know that junk food is coming for your waistline. But I'm here to tell you that it's doing way more. For the first time, an international team of researchers has held an umbrella review. This is a broad assessment. They studied almost 10 million people to understand how UPF, or ultra-processed food, affects the human body. This is the world's largest review of its kind, and here's what it found. UPF is directly linked to 32 diseases. This is not how I want to end a Friday or begin a new month, but I want you to picture something. Think of the worst thing that can happen to your health. Think of any parameter: mental, respiratory, cardiovascular, gastro, metabolic, cancer, mortality. Junk food poorly affects all of this. It increases risks of all kinds of problems: obesity by 66%, cardiovascular disease by 50%, type 2 diabetes 12%. Mental disorders by 53%, depression by 22%. It is also linked to asthma and cancer and increases the risk of death by 21%. These numbers are disconcerting. But people love their burgers and pizzas. The UK and the US consume the most UPF in the world, ultra-processed food. More than half their average diet consists of junk food. France and Sweden take the next two spots. India is 13th on the list. Doesn't sound that bad, does it? But over the past decade, the sale of junk food has tripled in India. Indians spent $30 billion on junk food in 2022. $30 billion, and according to the recent Household Consumption Expenditure Survey, Indians have been spending more on processed food and lesser on home-cooked meals. But it's important to note one thing here. Everyone does not choose to eat junk food. Many don't see another way. Like people from disadvantaged areas, junk food usually accounts for 80% of their diet, and even people who can afford healthy food choose to avoid it. Because junk food is cheaper, more delicious, and it's everywhere. From TV ads and memes to office vending machines, our world frames junk food as an indulgence. And the warnings do not filter to our daily lives. So what can we do about it? We can't expect any better from food companies. Highly processed food is highly profitable. We can't demand good intentions from consumers either. Why would anyone expect a tired commuter or hungry office worker to resist a burger? That's just gaslighting. So let me go back to the example of cigarettes. Do you know how our perception changed towards smoking? When governments amped up their efforts. Between the 1990s and early 2000s, governments pushed for obligatory warnings like no smoking signs or warnings on cigarette packets. They brought in strict regulation. With junk food too, strict regulation is the only way. For centuries, human beings have engineered what they eat. We say it's time we regulate it as well.